The Barroom Network presents two fired-up Bears fans. They are ready to rumble on the Bear Debate.
Hey, this is David Kaplan from the Cap J Hood Show on ESPN 1000 and NBC Sports Chicago. Now get ready to listen and watch to Bulls 101 with Chris and Laro. Take that, Sparkles.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Bulls 101. My name is Chris Amundson. I'm here with my guy, Lara Golden, as always. And we're here for some more Hoops After Dark. I know we had Elias on, and now I can't think of any other better name than that. Hoops After Dark. So how you doing, man? I know you've been enjoying some Chicago Sky games this weekend. I caught the second half of Game 2. That was pretty fun. But what's going on, man?
Man, nothing much, man. Like you said, Chicago Sky, like, I'm going to need some more support, man, from a lot more fans out here, man. The Sky are playing some good basketball. They're getting beat up on the glass a lot against this Connecticut Sun team, but for the most part, they're really competing and they have a shot to really win this series. So that's one thing. Second thing is, I never thought I'd be a soccer dad. I never thought I'd be a dad that had a son that plays soccer. I never played soccer, but to have a son that plays soccer and actually got a little skill, you know, this is something different for me. So I've been pretty happy. I've been a proud dad. Even at work, I've been, bragging to all my coworkers, and stuff like that. They, showing videos, But man, for the most part, man, I'm doing really well and ready, like you said, man, to talk some hoops after dark, man. I'm loving that. I'm loving that.
I do. I love it a lot. So our guest today, I'm really excited. Training camp. We just had training camp start this week. We finally heard from Arturas Karnisovas, Billy Donovan, and some of the key players, the new acquisitions. And our first preseason game is this Tuesday. Oh, number one fan. Look at this. You got. What's going on here?
I really don't like this. Oh my gosh.
This is great. So listen, our guest tonight, we had him on several months ago, and the roster, the last time we spoke to Mr. Darnell Mayberry from The Athletic, who is one of my absolute favorite writers. If you guys aren't subscribing to The Athletic already, I think I started like 5 years ago, and it was like $30 a year. It's like $250 a month, and they've got specials going on all the time. You guys really should do yourselves a favor and join the Athletic and read Darnell's work. He's had some really great articles this week, especially with preseason ready. So we want to welcome Darnell to the show tonight. Darnell, how you doing on this Saturday evening? Joining us for some Hoops After Dark. We appreciate you.
I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
Man, just happy to have you on, man, so we can really talk to you, man, and really pick your brain about this team. I know you're excited, man. I mean, we all know how this team has looked these past couple of years, so it may be even more than a couple of years. So I know you're happy, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but be excited after seeing everything that they've done and knowing where they've been the last 4 years. You know, a lot of the national media is kind of nitpicking at the Bulls for this and that, and did they give up too much here and there? But those of us who have watched this team day in and day out for, and I'm going to say 4 years because I've only been here for 4 years, you know, it just got to a point where something needed to be done. And Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, you know, they did a nice job this offseason. So, yes, I'm definitely excited to see these new pieces.
Well, and I know it's way more exciting to write about an exciting team, a fun team, a team with lots of new pieces than it is to write about a tanking team. You know, like the storylines have got to come a little bit easier to you when there's a lot of new pieces and things to integrate. First of all, I wanted to say, you know, since you don't have a podcast of your own, you know, we want to welcome you as a third co-host to Bulls 101. Anytime you want to come on, you get those hot takes off. I know you said you get in trouble sometimes. But
I almost came on here with my yak, man. Y'all got me on here at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. I almost brought my yak on here. Y'all weren't ready for that.
That's right. But I know you're probably even more excited that this year you get to be in person and actually, you know, at the Advocate Center, at the press conferences. So what has that change been like for you? Obviously, the last year has been crazy. But this is probably like the first time you've been able to be in person with Billy Donovan. Well, I mean, since he's been in Chicago, Arturas. So what's that been like for you?
You know, right before the pandemic, you know, we got some interaction with them up close and personal, but then it all shut down. So, you know, it's different. I enjoyed the fact that at Media Day, some of the players came in and said that they were glad that it was back to somewhat normal and that we were face to face again. So, you know, I think everyone just missed it. The Zoom press conferences were awkward. No one liked them. Although I did think players were a lot more professional in those settings. So, you know, you just didn't get as much information. You didn't get as much rich context to build out stories for doing things that I like to do. So, yeah, I'm glad to be back. It's gonna be a lot better.
I really wanted to ask you, really, what have you coming into that first day, media day, and now having some training camp days under your belt as well for this season so far? What are some impressions you have of this team? I know it's early, but I mean, being around the guys and being able to see how they interact with each other and, you know, things like that. Like, what are some of the impressions you see so far?
Yeah, I mean, this as excited as we all are to see how it's going to play out. I mean, this thing I think it's going to be great one way or the other. I mean, it's either going to be an amazing success or it's going to crash and burn. and you know, even an in between is that, like, okay, if they're just okay, that's going to be a disappointment. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. It doesn't seem like these guys, and again, we haven't seen them play. Right. We're just going off of a lot of new guys coming in and being interviewed. But it seems like everyone's trying to get to know each other. And that kind of confirms a little bit of my concerns, at least going in, is that it's going to take these guys some time to gel. And I think that's the biggest thing that they're talking about right now is learning each other and trying to get acclimated to one another. And that could take some time. I think people should probably have some patience as they try to figure this out.
No doubt. I mean, obviously, if you look at the schedule, it gets rough pretty quickly. First 4 or 5 games are a little bit easier. Some teams that, they should be ahead of in the standings. But then you go through, almost like a month and a half of quality playoff teams that they're going to be facing. And as you said, Darnell, they're going to have to gel quickly. I think, it's definitely something where we have to be patient. And so as we approach preseason this coming week, I think those are going to be some key factors we're looking at. What are they doing? What kind of offense are they running? Whose hands are they putting the ball in what situations? What are the rotations like? Now, obviously, Patrick Williams is out. Kobe White is out to start the season. Hopefully, Patrick is back by the season opener. But we'll see what happens there. But I know you wrote an article specifically on Kobe White this week. So for those listeners that haven't been able to read it, what kind of impressions have you had from management? Because I know you said that he's still got a lot of supporters, and I think his role this season, he was asked to do a whole lot last season. He was asked to do a whole lot, probably more than anyone else on the team. Starting point guard, going off the bench, going from a shooting guard role to a starting point guard role, going from the bench to the starters. Defensively, he started, being put at the point of attack instead of as kind of help on the perimeter. He was asked to do a lot of things, and he had, a lot of successes and ups and downs, obviously. But what do you see going into this season, how Kobe White's role has changed and how he can succeed in that role?
I get the sense that Billy Donovan wants him to be a spot-up shooter. It could be that the ball is out of his hands. Caruso could be the backup, and Kobe White could be an off-guard spot-up shooter. Just go back to what Billy Donovan said several times last year when everyone talked about how he's an electric scorer and all of this. Like, no, he's not a scorer. He's a shooter. And so the fact that Donovan was saying that last year, and then now they've brought in Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso and DeRozan, and all of these guys need the ball in their hands. I just don't see how Kobe fits in as the orchestrator at this point. I think that going into his third year, he's going to be playing off the ball and thriving like he did last year on kickouts or driving kicks. When he can just catch and shoot, he excels, and he's a really good shooter. So I think Billy Donovan is going to try to play that up and try to limit his weaknesses. And now they have the personnel where they can do that a lot more.
Yeah, that is something that excites me for him, because I think if you really understand the game and you really watched when he really excelled. I mean, yeah, he had some games where he passed the ball pretty well and created some plays here and there. But I think when you really saw the best Kobe is when that shot was really falling, when he was able to really take some nice threes, take a nice amount of threes. And then I think we also saw once Vooch got there and they started to play off each other a little bit, we saw we saw him play pretty well off of Vooch and off ball roll and catch and shoot situations. So for me, I love hearing that you think that's what Billy wants from him. Because I think that's the best Kobe. The gravity he's going to warrant, to help the rest of the guys, get some more spacing, things like that. That's going to be great for him. But I kind of wanted to ask you. I know last time we had you on, you were a little bit skeptical of the Vooch move, and I just wanted to know if you're still a little bit skeptical about the whole of everything that's gone on. If so, I would love to hear why. But if not, man, what excites you the most about this squad? Other than, I know if they crash and burn, those are great storylines as well. I've heard that as a writer, you don't want to be in the middle. You don't want a boring team that's not exciting, or a team, you want either really bad or you want some good stuff going on. So what exactly, I guess, excites you about this team? And if you still are skeptical about, everything that's gone on with the regime in terms of their moves.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see competent basketball finally. Yeah. And NBA caliber players. So many guys have come through here who have just been, two-way guys or fringe back end of the roster type players. So I'm just tired of watching that. I can't do that anymore. But no, the Vucevic thing. I was skeptical. I will say that Karnisovas and Eversley have done a hell of a job. Again, going out this summer and surrounding Zach and Vucevic with DeRozan and Lonzo Ball and Caruso, Patrick Williams. I'm high on. I don't know how you guys feel about Pat, but I'm really high on Pat and think he could be a really, really good fifth starter. I mean, if we're talking about him as the fifth option, I mean that's a heck of a starting lineup you have. So they've done a good job of filling in the gaps to a degree, but yet this is still not a guaranteed, semifinalist team. I mean, even we're not talking about a conference finalist here or an NBA finals appearance on the horizon. So they've done all of this stuff and they've given up a lot of flexibility and future assets to be a fringe playoff team. So they didn't take any victory laps at media day, and they should not have because they haven't done anything yet. So we're going to see how it all plays out on the court.
Yeah, I know. I shared some of my concerns with you last time we spoke about the Vooch trade, but a lot of it had to do with, okay, well, we got to see the end of this thing, right? They've made the first move, but they said we're not done yet, and it's clear that we have a bunch of holes on the roster, specifically at small forward and at point guard. Now they went out and got DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, and Caruso to help replace, because you look at players like last year, like Satoransky and Garrett Temple are quality players, but we were asking them to do way too much for their skill set, right? I mean, Garrett Temple should not be your 30 minutes per night defensive stopper and shooter. He was just doing too much. And so now we brought in these guys. And so you mentioned Patrick Williams and how high we are on him. I mean, I think the timeline, I think you mentioned the giving up assets, but I think the timeline works really, really well with Patrick Williams because 2 or 3 years from now, when Vooch and DeMar, their contracts are up and they may re-sign, they may not, but I think Patrick Williams is going to step right into that role and hopefully be another star next to Zach and next to Lonzo Ball that can kind of continue this thing going. So, if you look at the assets, when you look at it on paper, like, oh, that's, two first rounders for Vooch, another first rounder for DeMar DeRozan, and then we may get some sort of tampering, pick loss as well, which I know you tried to bait. I know you tried to bait AK with that, and he's like, I'm not touching that one. I'm not talking about that. But if you look at starting from now to the future, we're only out one first round pick from now till forever, right? Because we picked up that extra one in the Lowry marketing deal. Mm-hmm. So if they had to retool, if they had to do something, I think they've still got some ways to do it. But as you mentioned, it's a lot's dependent on this roster coming together. Patrick Williams is going to have a really big role, especially on the defensive end, I think, to start the year, because Vooch and DeMar. DeMar obviously has his defensive struggles, and Vooch is not really a rim protector. He's a paint deterrent. He's a big body out there. He's in the right spots, but he's not going to be blocking shots. He's not that kind of rim protector. And so they're going to be looking to Patrick Williams' weak side rim protection a lot. I think Derrick Jones Jr. is also going to have to step in that role. I know you had an article this week about Patrick Williams, early loss and who you think can replace him. So if you had to take a chance today and say, I think so-and-so is going to get that starting role, like who would you put in there to be that fifth starter with Patrick Williams out?
Well, I'm going to go back to Billy Donovan and just going off of what he's saying to us. And there seems to be a bromance between Billy Donovan and Stanley Johnson. I don't know if Stanley Johnson can play at this point. He's had his bumps in the road throughout his career. They talked about him finally finding a niche. It remains to be seen. But Billy Donovan recruited him out of high school. He coached him with the USA team back in the day. So they have history. And for whatever reason, they seem to have this connection. And I think Billy Donovan is going to give him a shot. Now, people think, DeRozan will slide down or Derrick Jones Jr. might go in there. But, what makes those guys any better than Stanley Johnson?
You know what? I ain't gonna say much about that.
For that position.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Darnell, I said the last episode that I would give Stanley a shot because I like this team offensively. It's going to be one of the, what do we say, Chris? Like top 5, top 10 offense in the NBA this year.
It better be top 10.
Yeah,
it better be a top 10 offense, and I think they have the capability to be top 5 if it all fits together.
So in my opinion, if Stanley's gonna be out there, right, use him as a cutter. He's get out on the fast break and rebound. And one of the things that this team is gonna have a lot of questions on is on the defensive end. So adding a guy like Stanley, I think if you give him a guy like Stanley a role and say, hey, bro, we don't need you taking this many shots a game. Just move around, create space with your cutting, and on the defensive end is where you make your money. Right. And you could play on ball, you could play off ball. Right. So, I mean, I think I would give him a shot too. But at the same time, I understand the skepticism of a player like Stanley. But I just needed to ask you. Right. So I remember last time we were on, we talked about it. You got a little history covering Billy D in OKC. Are there any concerns you have? Like you could talk about all the players and what talent we have, the Bulls have, and this and that. But are there any concerns you have with covering Billy in OKC and seeing what type of coach he is when he had talent like Kevin Durant and Russ and then he had CP3 and Dennis for a little bit. But like, is there any concerns you have of him as a coach with this type of talent?
Yeah, I mean, he's got. There's one thing. It's a catch-22 for Billy Donovan a little bit because he's got a more experienced team, and on one hand, you can say, "Oh, that's a good thing. You don't have to do as much coaching with these young guys or teaching for these young guys. You can go out there and rely on your veterans to know how to play and know what they're doing. But at the same time, those veterans, they come with habits already formed. And so can Billy Donovan really get to those, I'm using elite loosely here, but elite level players, Zach, DeMar, Vucevic, and Lonzo is kind of creeping into that territory a little bit more and more. So is he going to be able to corral all of these personalities and get them on one accord? Is he that type of coach that can do that? That's still my question.
Yeah, I know you had an article out last time we talked where you said, hey, if the Bulls don't start doing something, the Heat's going to start just pointing to Billy Donovan. You got a lot of flack for that at the time.
Yep.
But it is true. He did start to get some heat for it. And you saw the fan base start to kind of have some questions. Now, obviously, I think the goodwill has been built up again with the fan base because of all the moves. I know all three of us were skeptical about it wasn't that I didn't think that AK could make a good roster. It was that the path to doing so didn't seem very clear to me. Right? We had a bunch of players who were not very good or still young or just kind of in weird spots. And we needed to turn those players into better players somehow. And I mean, I'm as impressed, I think, as anyone how he was able to do that and to bring in guys like DeMar. But I wanted to talk about the dynamics of this team. And have you had a chance to watch any of their, have they done any scrimmages in training camp, or is it just been kind of drills and sets and stuff?
Yeah, they're not letting us watch anything. It's all post-practice shooting and free throws, that type of thing. So,
bummer.
Not yet. We'll see Tuesday, just like you guys.
Okay, I was gonna say because some of these teams have like YouTube videos of like open scrimmages practices and stuff. But if you look at some of the weaknesses we had last year, especially if you look like our main guy Zach LaVine had incredible growth as a playmaker, as a shooter. On the defensive end, I thought he made excellent strides. But some of the weaknesses that continued to show up were crunch time moments where he would turn the ball over or not necessarily take the best shot. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that there wasn't really a whole lot for him to do otherwise. Everyone knew he was going to be the guy taking that last shot. And so defenses would key in on him. Another thing we really struggled with last year was we were last in the league in free throw attempts, but just no one had rim pressure other than Zach. And Zach is not the type of he's an excellent cutter. He can get to the rim, but he doesn't draw fouls at the type of rate like a Jimmy Butler or like a DeMar DeRozan kind of guy does. He's more athletic, right? He kind of slithers in between the defense. He doesn't body guys, doesn't draw that contact. You bring in a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who's a half court, very efficient, very low turnover guy. Vooch is the same way, very, very low turnover, very smart with the ball. And DeRozan specifically draws a ton of fouls going to the rim, and especially in crunch time. And then you bring in a guy like Lonzo Ball, who is a great, great connector, lots and lots of shooting. So you see, we're talking about Stanley Johnson kind of filling that fifth starter role for Patrick Williams and not having to ask him to do a lot of handling. We've now got a lot of other people on the team that can take pressure off of Zach. So how do you see that dynamic working? I know Larry and I have talked about it because we're excited about the possibilities, but who do you see as the primary ball handler on the team, and how do you see the other pieces fitting in alongside that kind of role to make it all mesh together? I know it's kind of a long-winded question, but
yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is Zach LaVine is in a contract year, and I think it's going to be hard to get the ball out of Zach LaVine's hands this year. You know what I mean? So Lonzo can come in and say what he wants. DeMar can come in and have as many accolades as he wants. They got their money. Zach LaVine is in a contract year.
You know what is funny is I was watching the NBC Sports Chicago, their media day special. And they had a sit down with Zach, and Zach was basically saying, they were like, oh, like, how are you guys going to play together? And I think this goes with what you just said is Zach was like, I got to be myself. I gotta be who I am, and we got to figure it out, from there. But he was like, if I'm not Zach LaVine, then I'm not giving you my best self, so that definitely sounds exactly like you're saying. And like, I mean, he took very big strides last year as a ball handler in pick and roll, and I can't blame him. But like Chris, I think what you're alluding to is like I hope that what we saw last year in clutch minutes, with Zach and Kobe having very bad turnovers at the worst times in games, and I think having a DeMar. Having a guy like DeMar where you can throw him the ball in late game situations and let Zach move off ball and come off screens and do what I think he can do really well, what we think he can do really well. And I just hope, that happens. I hope they work that out. Like DeMar said, it ain't rocket science, so we'll see.
Yeah, we will see, DeMar. No, but here's the thing. Ideally, theoretically, it should work, right? I mean, Zach LaVine takes a step back. He has all these weapons around him now to where he doesn't have to do as much offensively. He doesn't have to force it in the clutch. He can focus maybe more on defense, even more than, and I agree with you, Chris, even more than he did last year. And I think, you really had to watch him to see the efforts that he put in defensively last year. And it wasn't always consistent. And that's the next step, I think, in his maturation, is to do it consistently throughout a whole season. He kind of trails off at the end for whatever reason, but if he finds it in himself to take a step back, to focus on those things I just mentioned, and not feel like he's got to go out there and score 28 to 30 points per game to go out here and make generational wealth. He's always talked about how everything comes with winning.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they win, he's going to get his money. I don't know if Zach's mindset is that, and I'm not saying it's not. I just don't know, and we'll see sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, and you saw, if you watch the Olympics, and when he had a more specialized role in the Olympics, he wasn't on ball as much. He wasn't, he didn't have to score 30 points a night in the Olympics. You saw him defensively. He was on guys defensively. He was really, really good. I thought it was some of the most impressive defense I've seen from Zach. So I think the Bulls are banking on that, and I think Zach is going to benefit from that. He doesn't. I mean, the problem last year was if Zach didn't score 30, we were in trouble, right? We weren't winning games unless remember when he scored 50 against Atlanta and we still lost that game. I mean, he put up 50 on good efficiency and we still lost. So that's, the front office has really targeted the weaknesses of this team, because the other one was point of attack defense, and they brought in and perimeter defense in general, because it was just basically Garrett Temple and Sato if he felt like it sometimes. And they brought in Caruso, who's one of the best point of attack defenders and help defenders in the NBA at his position, and Lonzo Ball, who's a very, very smart help defender as well, who also played a lot of point of attack defense. So we talked about the defense a little bit. Besides Zach's defense, DeMar and Vooch aren't thought of very highly as defenders. So how do you think, what concerns do you have on the defensive end, and what kind of lineups or players do you think they're going to be relying on to help buoy that defense?
You know what? I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to say that maybe their defense isn't as much of a concern as we think it might be. And that has to do with Billy Donovan historically having good defensive teams. That has to do with they have put some defensive players around these guys. So, yeah, the main offensive weapons, DeMar, Zach, Vucevic, aren't known as defenders, but look who's around them. I mean, you got a bunch of defenders around these guys that I don't think we talk enough about. Starting with Patrick Williams, starting with Lonzo Ball, and you mentioned Alex Caruso, and then you've got guys off the bench. Everybody but Kobe White is a defender off the bench.
Yep.
I mean, this could be a top 4 or 5 seed team, but that's a stretch to ask guys in there. What is DeMar in his 13th season? Zach's in his 7th season. Guys are who they are at this point, and they get the reputations they get for a reason. So
yeah,
they're talking. They're saying all the right things. They're talking a good game and talking about how they want to win, and that's what it's about. But the games don't lie, so we'll see.
Listening to Billy during media day, and I think I heard this, and I think I texted Chris, and he said that this team on the defensive end is going to start with Zach, Vooch, and DeMar. And he said that DeMar is a good on-ball defender. And maybe that's just good that's coach speak. He's trying to send those vibes to the media for DeMar to hear, and I don't know. But, we'll see, like you said, but I've talked about it before, right? As a coach, and I'm not saying this team is going to be Brooklyn. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you look at everybody's talking about their defensive rating, how bad defensively they were historically when they first got together. But what people fail to realize is when you have an offense that is just getting buckets after buckets after buckets, keeping live turnovers down, and continuing to make teams take the ball out of the basket and not giving them easy, fast break baskets and forcing them to go against a half-court defense, I think that means a lot, especially for a team like you just said. Yeah, there's DeMar, there's Zach, and there's Vooch, but there are defenders around them. So if you could score at a high efficient clip and make teams continue to have to bring the ball up and go against a set defense, I think that this like you said, I think the harping on the defense is a little overblown. And Chris has mentioned on the show many times, they finished 12th last year in defensive rating, and they were even worse. There was no Alex Caruso, right? There was no Lonzo Ball, So it's got to harp, slow the roll on them a little bit. But there's another player I wanted to ask you about and get your opinion on how you think he would fit in. And that player is, me and Chris love this guy. It's Troy Brown Jr. So what do you see? How do you think he can break into the rotation and really impact this team?
Well, the Bulls don't talk about him at all. And I find that interesting.
Yes, true.
I wrote that article about Kobe White possibly being a forgotten man. Troy Brown Jr. is the forgotten man. I talked to him briefly at Summer League this year, and it was the most awkward interview, maybe the top 5 awkward interview I've ever had. Just because he didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to ask, and it was just where do you fit, man? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna see from you this year? So, going back to Chris's question about defense, I do think that this team is like one of my big concerns is, they want to play small. They're going to have to play small, and they could get abused defensively on the glass, inside, getting kickouts, second chance point opportunities, which could lead to 3-point shots. I mean, they could get rebounding. Like it could get ugly at times when they play small if they don't have a defensive system that's going to allow them to tread water when they go small. So, but Troy Brown Jr. may be able to come in and be a boost to this team when they go small. Maybe he finds a role in those lineups. But I like what he does. I mean, he gives you a little bit of versatility offensively. We saw some good defensive stretches from him last season. But they just don't talk about him, and it makes me feel like he's not in the plan.
That worries me a lot because, I mean, number one, they gave up Daniel Gafford to get him, and Daniel Gafford looked pretty good.
Bad trade. That was a bad trade.
So I've heard this. I've heard this argument. I still think that Troy Brown Jr., his position and his skill set, I think, are harder to find than Daniel Gafford's skill set, and I think his skill set's more important for this team. But if Troy Brown Jr. is the forgotten man, if he's not in their plans, then that does make the trade look bad, right? Because Gafford's probably going to be a starter this year in Washington, and some of that has to do with injury to Thomas Bryant. But that reminds me, Mark Ciranzola asked earlier in this show, does Darnell have a Wizards throw into that Chicago one he's sitting on? So I wanted to, Mark was asking. You got some Wizards gear.
Wizards gear for you, Mark. I can get my Wizards gear out. It's hard, though, man. They make it tough. Y'all think it's hard being Bulls fans lately.
Oh, man.
Y'all have only seen the greatest player of all time. Got 6 championships, but
Well, yeah, he was a Wizard a little. He was a Wizard for a season or two, right?
He's still giving buckets as a Wizard for a little bit now.
He could come off the bench. He could come off the bench and give you 10, 15 still, I'd say, even today.
I'd be afraid for Jordan if he came
back. There's a two-way available still, Darnell.
Nah, he's had tequila at this point.
So, but I wanted to say with Troy Brown Jr. defensively, we saw some really great flashes with him last year because when he came over from the Wizards, he said one of the things that he struggled with was Scott Brooks didn't really tell him how he could get on the floor. And when he got here, Billy Donovan said, give me defense, and that's how you're going to get your minutes. And he did, and we saw some really nice flashes there. And we know Troy Brown Jr. from the bubble when he was with the Wizards, a couple years ago in the bubble. It seems like I say a couple years ago, but was it just a year ago? The bubble was 2 seasons ago, but somehow, not that long ago in the calendar year. But he had some really nice flashes as a ball handler, secondary playmaker. A couple of things he did really excel at this year is, you mentioned playing small. He's a really great rebounder for his size, for his position. And he's also an excellent finisher at the rim on cuts. And so when DeMar comes out, if he can kind of slide into that role, play like a 3-4 or 2-3 role and, be off ball. If you got guys like Kobe, Zach, Lonzo, Pat on the wings, having that spacing, he can take advantage of those cuts. And if he can, do some team rebounding, help out that rebounding, that's going to be a big boon. But it does worry me that he hasn't been talked about. And I think I mentioned that on Media Day about Kobe as well. I was like, there was a whole lot of nothing about Kobe during that entire media session. And that worried me. Now, maybe it's just because he's injured right now.
Yeah.
But I know you wrote that article that they still have a lot of faith in him. And I think I can see a specialized role. I think Troy, even if they don't talk about him, is going to be really essential for this team to succeed. We've been looking for a small forward since Mike Dunleavy left. We haven't really had one. And we've been looking for a point guard since Derrick Rose left. So I'm hoping. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is Lonzo Ball. I think this is an early season storyline to watch. And I know you probably think the same, because his comments so far have been, "Hey, I'm gonna get back to playing like Lonzo Ball plays. Not like my role was with the Pelicans." But if you look at the ball handlers you have on this team with Zach and DeMar, I don't know how much pick and roll we're going to be seeing Lonzo, with the ball in his hands for. So what do you see as Lonzo's role going forward? And do you think there's going to be any friction if it ends up a similar role to what he had with the Pelicans?
I mean, I think they're going to try everything they can to placate Lonzo Ball and give him the ball and let him orchestrate the offense, at least to start halves. And then from there, I think they're going to want to run a lot, like we talked about. And so that allows him to do what he does best and push it ahead and find guys in transition. And so that it might not just be the traditional Chris Paul come down and set it up in the half court. I don't think that's what we're going to see out of Lonzo Ball. And if he's expecting that, I think he's in for a rude awakening. At times he is going to have to do that, and they're going to ask him to do that. But they're going to put the ball in Zach's hands. They're going to put the ball in DeMar's hands. Vucevic is going to run offense from the high post and out to the three-point line like they tried to do last year at times. And even at the start of the year when we saw Wendell Carter Jr. try to do it and couldn't. So Billy Donovan's going to try to do that with his bigs as well. So, and then staggering. I think you might have mentioned it earlier, Chris. They're going to stagger some to allow him to have the ball in his hands a little bit more and orchestrate the offense. But I don't see a lot of it coming in the half court. And honestly, I don't think he's that great. I mean, I think you guys might agree that he might not be that player in general. So I think it's best for him to have other options around him and to also push it in transition.
We've talked about it a lot on this show, man. I really feel like people, when they heard Lonzo say, I'm going to be a traditional point guard, I think people just like, there are some people out there that think Lonzo is opportunity away from being Luka. And I don't think that's not it, man. Like,
hey man, let me just slow you down real quick, Laro. I hear Lonzo's got some stands out there, man. So
hey,
be careful what you're saying. They're gonna flood your podcast.
I have already encountered them.
You might not want to do that to yourself.
Darnell, I have to tell you, I'll interrupt you. Sorry, Larry, for a second, but at the start of free agency, I kind of tweeted out a list of guys I wanted. And first it was guards, and Alex Caruso was like towards the top of my list. And Lonzo Ball was there, and DeJounte Murray trade was in there too, or whatever. But then I took wings, and my first wing was Lonzo Ball. And
they didn't like that, did they?
They did not like that.
Yeah.
They did not like that. And I was like, listen, man, it's not a diss. The man is a good shooter. He's become a very, very good high-volume three-point shooter. He's an excellent defender. He's 3 and D, but he's also an amazing passer. But he does not get to the rim. He does not draw free throws. He doesn't draw fouls. He is very much a perimeter player. He doesn't break down defenses and pick and roll. That's not his game. As you mentioned, Darnell, his excellence is in transition. He is so good at reading defenses that are already broken down and finding the right person to pass it to. That's where he makes his money. But he's not the one creating the advantage. He's the one that's continuing or, helping the play finish. And so I think, but that's a very similar role to what he had with the Pelicans. As I mentioned, that's where he makes his money. He's making quite a bit more money now than he did with the Pelicans. So maybe that's going to help. And then winning, Pelicans weren't winning a lot. If the Bulls win, I think we're not going to hear a lot about it. But if the Bulls start out and they're like 6-12 or 6-10 or something in these first, this first month or two, I have a feeling we're going to start hearing from Lonzo or maybe a member of his family, and certainly from all the fan base of Lonzo that's going to be in my mentions anytime I say anything about it. But I have a lot of faith that it'll work.
All I'm trying to tell you guys is that when you see me not saying a bad word about Lonzo all this season, you know why.
Hey, man. I just feel like when you watch the game, right? Well, like I said, I watched a good amount of Pelicans games just because I wanted to get a better feel on Lonzo. I just wanted to get a better feel. And I feel like Stan at the time tried to give him reps as a pick and roll player. And it just wasn't amounting to anything because he wasn't getting paint touches. He wasn't tilting defenses. So when they started to get better is when they moved him to the wing and they had Point Zion going on. And there's nothing wrong with being that guy that he is good at. Like, I don't understand why people are like, oh, he shouldn't be on the wing. He should be handling the ball. Like, what do you mean? Like I wouldn't mind him running pick and rolls if it's off a second, if it's a second action, like if it's the defense is already tilted. Like, yeah, brother, go ahead and run that. But if he's coming down and he's got to create that advantage, I'm sorry. If you really think, I'm just gonna say, if you really think that Lonzo is the guy that's gonna break down the defense, get to the cup, draw help, and no, that's not his game. And I hope that Lonzo
Laro, who Larro.
I can see Darnell's face going, I'm watching. Yeah. I'm Pontius Pilate right now. I'm washing my hands. This whole.
Hey, who else y'all want to talk
about? Well, let's talk about the player we haven't mentioned yet, which is Nikola Vucevic.
Yes,
I think he and Mark Caranzolis from Bulls HQ. He said this in the podcast a few weeks ago. I think he might be the most important player for the Bulls because of the fact that we have nobody to replace his skill set if he ever goes down with injury or has any issues. He is so key to making DeMar DeRozan's game work with Zach LaVine, because DeMar DeRozan doesn't shoot threes, doesn't have a lot of spacing gravity, and is not very good off ball, right? He doesn't do a lot off ball, or at least he hasn't historically. But Vucevic being that pick and pop option and being so good on the block, as you mentioned, being able to operate out of the high post, he's going to be an essential skill set that is not replaceable, because right now the backups for him are Tony Bradley on a minimum and Marko Simonovic, who's, a rookie. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of Marko Simonovic. I think Skokes asked this question as well, because I was getting a lot of praise. I don't know about you, Darnell, but I'm not sure if he's going to crack the bench rotation either this year. My only guess would be maybe early on if Kobe's out, but I don't see him getting a lot of minutes this year with the team aspirations. But going to Vooch, I just wanted to see what your opinion of Vooch's role is and his importance to the team, and what you think we can expect from him this year.
Yeah, he seems to be excited. I can speak to it more from what he told us, and I'm sure you guys heard him at Media Day, but he's talking about how he's got more space now. Billy Donovan's echoing the same thing. It's probably coming from the same place, but they got too big last year, so they feel like that's going to help Vooch have more space, be able to get out there and work from the top of the key a little bit more than he did last year. They said they posted him up a little bit more than he liked him to have done last year, but they still want to post him up. They want to get him in transition as the trail big. They want to use his rebounding skills, and that's going to be important, hugely important if they want to get out in transition. So, you're right. He's going to do a lot of things for this team that are going to be invaluable, and they can't lose him. I would look at Patrick Williams as kind of the next guy along those lines. That you can't replace what Patrick Williams gives you, and we're about to see that when this preseason slate starts. But yeah, I mean, Vucevic, for as critical as I don't even think I was critical, as skeptical maybe as I was about the trade, he's a fantastic player. He's still 31, 32 years old and doesn't play much defense. I mean, he's not as bad as I think people think he is, but that's how much can you build with a Nikola Vucevic is my question. This year I do think he's going to be hugely important to what they're trying to do. I agree with you, Chris. Long term, how much better are you going to be with him as your centerpiece big man?
I wonder about Vooch, right? Like, what I mean is, it's like, if you go back and you look at those Magic teams, I knew Mark was going to say, hey, look, let me tell you something, man. When you from here, okay, you support your brethren. But
how you feel about Devon Dotson? Is he from? Are we saying he's from here?
I mean, bro moved to the Carolinas, man.
That's a little iffy. Yeah, that's a little iffy.
I don't know, man. But no, man. But if you go back and look at those Orlando Magic teams, like I'm just trying. I don't think he's ever had a team like this in terms of offensive firepower. So I'm very interested to see what he can do. Like you said, in the high post, being more of a hub, facilitating. I'm interested, man, because I've always thought of Vooch as like a poor man's like Jokic in a way, and I would love to see him in this type of role with a Zach LaVine who plays really well on ball, but is a very good off ball player as well. We just haven't been able to see it because we just haven't had any competent guys that can pass the ball well and read defenses. I'm very excited to see if we can stretch. We've always been able to stretch, for the three, but I want to see if we can start stretching teams vertically as well, getting some more oops, using Zach's athleticism and Pat's athleticism. So I'm really excited. I want to see what it looks like with Vooch in a more important role and see what it looks like, because if he can really produce and add some stability and pass that ball really well, and I'm excited to see what that looks like. But again, like you said, we'll see for the long term how that goes, right?
Someone has to fill the Thad Young role. This team could really use a high post passer hitting cutters like Thad Young did so often last year, whether it was Zach, Saturansky, Kobe White, like whoever he was hitting, Tice, he ended up having chemistry with damn near everyone. So if you could find a big man, if Vucevic can, and like you said, be a hub and hit cutters like that, I think that makes DeRozan and Zach and Lonzo even better. They don't have to do as much, and he can find them, take some pressure off of them offensively.
Real quick, Chris, Darnell, how do you feel about this? Right. So we got a statement by Chubbs82, and it says Zach LaVine is not a good off-ball player. He is a transition shooter mostly. How do you feel about that one?
We haven't seen it. I agree more with you, Laro, that we haven't seen it because he's had to have the ball in his hand so much with the Bulls. But, we've seen him cut. We've seen him catch and shoot. We've seen him defer to whether it was Chris Dunn or Kobe White. Yeah. Blast from the past, right? Kobe White, Thomas Saturansky. We've seen him play off of all of these guys. So I wouldn't say that he's not a good off-ball player. He's growing and he's developing. And I don't know why Zach LaVine gets so much criticism. Given what he's been through in his career, how it started, some of the adversity he's had. The guy just continues to get better year in and year out, and it hasn't shown up in terms of team success. But look at the teams he's played on. I mean, the guy just continues to get better. So I don't understand the criticism Zach LaVine receives.
I don't either, and I would have to disagree completely with what Chubbs was saying here. Is Zach LaVine was the second most efficient cutter in the entire league last year on points per possession. Only Anthony Davis was better. And so this year, Darnell, as you mentioned, we're going to see a little bit more off-ball Zach. But you saw it last year when Kobe was handling the ball and Zach was off-ball. The man is a cheat code. You leave Zach LaVine open anywhere on the perimeter, or you give him a lane to drive to the basket. I mean, it's easy buckets every time. Like the amount of difficult shots Zach had to take because no one else was able to create that type of opening for him. I mean, it was phenomenal what he was able to do. So I think as efficient as he was last year, his shots are going to be easier this year. I don't know if he's going to shoot at the same efficiency, but he's going to have an easier time getting open because there's not a lot of holes offensively for this team. Vooch is a really good post scorer. He can really shoot from the elbows. He can shoot from both baselines. You got DeMar. I mean, he's an excellent driver. Yeah, Mark's here to sabotage my show. What time is it in Australia? Is it time for you to go to bed? No, it's probably like midday there. Dang it. No, I think Zach LaVine off ball. If he, and as you mentioned, Darnell, if he takes on that role a little bit more and kind of eases off a little bit, I think he's going to have a really really efficient year. Let's see. I want to ask you. There was a question here about the backup four. So I know we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show for who's going to start at that spot. And you kind of mentioned Stanley Johnson, but Musa here had a question: Stanley Johnson or Alize Johnson for backup 4 minutes. Let's say once Pat is back, who do you think is backing Pat up in the rotation?
I kind of am intrigued by Alize Johnson, the what they're saying about his energy and his motor, and how hard he goes. I think every team needs a guy like that. I think this team specifically needs a guy like that because outside of Alex Caruso, who's going to really go out there and do, and Patrick Williams, of course, will do whatever you ask him to do, but who's going to go out there and just be a hustle player who's going to do the dirty work and get you extra possessions, get you offensive rebounds, second chance opportunities, maybe, start the break with a block shot or a defensive rebound or saving a loose ball, something like that. I think Alize could be a spark to this team. Now, I haven't seen him play with this group, so I want to see all of these guys play together and see how it looks. And I think that's what Billy Donovan is saying, and that's what his big point was when I was asking him the questions for that article I wrote this week. He needs to see how it fits as a group. He's not just thinking about one aspect or the other, whether it's a shooter or a rebounder, a defender, an energy guy. He wants to see how that player fits with the group. And I think he's taken that approach with whether it's the starter, the backup, or any other player that takes the court. He wants to make sure that the unit is excelling.
You mentioned that this team needs like a Thad, right? And I don't think Alize is at the level defensively of Thad. I think Thad is a damn good defender. But I look at, watching Alize play and doing like a little bit of background on him, like he grew up as a point guard. And then he just kind of like, the rest of the stories, man, he just shot up and, they moved him to another position. But there are flashes of him as a connective passer. And I'm just wondering if he can be that Thad, like in terms of like, in a short roll, pinch post, being able to find guys on back cuts or, finding where the help is and moving that ball quickly. Like I'm intrigued. I feel like I've seen a little bit that could translate to that. But if I had to take a guess at who has a pretty good chance at being that Thad, I would take a guess at Alize right now, at least. But that's just a wild guess. But I just, man, this team, like I can't even think of a. Yes, I can. It probably the last time I was excited, this excited was probably 2015. This team is yes, you can nitpick at it. You can nitpick at every team, right? You can nitpick the Lakers for being, everybody having an ARP card. You know what I'm saying? You could.
Can you nitpick the Nets this year because they look pretty nice?
Well, yes, you can actually. You can say
Kyrie gonna play?
Exactly. Is Kyrie gonna show up to work? So it's just but No, I know. No, I know what you mean, man. But no, I'm just saying, man, it's very exciting. This team this year is very exciting. I guess I'm want to see how Stanley looks, man, because I got I'm bullish on Stanley, man. I think he's a bull, man. I think he's a dude that you could throw out there and just really just sick him on people, right? Throw different bodies at some of the stars we're going to see, Stanley has had a rough time early in his career. Carlos Ramos says, he asks, why hasn't Stanley Johnson found success in his young career? And we talked about this with Mark Schindler on his pod, and he just had a tough go of it. And it hasn't been because of his work ethic. I think it just hasn't clicked for him. But I think if you really just go back and watch some of his time with the Raptors, like he's starting to find out I think he's always tried to be the scoring guy. Like I think he's figuring out like that's probably not going to be his game at this level, that he's probably going to have to be like a bull on the defensive end and cutter and things like that. So we'll see, man. But Mark K thinks he stinks, but I think I'm gonna give him a shot, man. I think he's a bull, man.
Mark's just trying to rouse us up here at midnight.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he knows what he's about. He knows the assignment here. Darnell, I want to ask you. Oh, sorry, go for it. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say something about Stanley, and it is interesting that he was a high draft pick and it just hasn't worked out for him. I've heard a couple different things. I've heard that he didn't really get along with Stan Van Gundy. Van Gundy might have broken him a little bit. Sort of like people were saying Jimbo broke our guy Larry Markkinen. But when I asked Stanley Johnson about his niche and how Billy Donovan has said that he seems to have found his niche a little bit more and more as he's gone on, the first thing out of Stanley Johnson's mouth was something like vague about how he wanted to be careful and how coaching matters. And I was like, what is this? So I sent it to someone who would know, and he's like, yeah, he didn't get along with Stan Van Gundy. And so I think that he got maybe into a bad situation, or maybe not the best situation early in his career. And it's all about where you go. Like that can make or break your career as a young player. And we could see that with Kobe White this year. I mean, if he's being yanked around and asked to do different things for the third consecutive year, then maybe his career might not pan out the way he hopes it will. So I'm not going to say I'm high on Stanley Johnson, but I am intrigued by him.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Darnell. For most players, I mean, the superstars can usually fit in anywhere. They can make any team better. But most players in the NBA need the right role and situation, the right coach, the right fit, the right role. And you saw it with Lowry. We saw it with Wendell. You saw it with Kobe, who were asked to do a lot of different things last year. And, sometimes in the league it's sink or swim. And I hope Lowry finds success in Cleveland. I hope Wendell finds it in Orlando. I mean, he's finally going to get a point guard in Jalen Suggs this year. So I have high hopes for him. You saw what Daniel Gafford did in the right situation with Westbrook setting him up. All of a sudden his offense looked pretty nice. And, defensively, he didn't have to be the hub of the offense like he was asked to do here when Wendell was down. So I think it's going to be like that for most players. And so Stanley Johnson, Tony Bradley, Troy Brown Jr., those are guys you take that leap on for the price, because it's like, hey, if we can find the situation that works for him here, we found a gem. You saw it with, the Clippers with like Terrence Mann looked pretty good last year. Reggie Jackson really, really showed out in the playoffs. So sometimes it's just about finding that right role.
I hate to bring up Cameron Payne.
Cameron Payne?
Yeah.
Phoenix. I mean, you just never know how a new environment is going to impact the guys for the better.
Absolutely. So in that vein, Darnell, who is the player on the Bulls that you are most excited about watching this year, or you have the highest hopes for?
I think I've answered this in a different place, but I think I said DeMar DeRozan. Just because we haven't really seen a player like him with the Bulls, not since I've been here. Zach LaVine is a better offensive player, but I think DeRozan is more polished. And Pat Williams talked about this at Media Day, where he gets to his spot. He's meticulous about doing what he wants to do. You can't speed him up. You're not going to force him into doing anything he doesn't want to do. That is a professional scorer. Zach LaVine gets it in a different way, but the way DeRozan goes about his offense, I'm really excited to see him play.
Yeah.
You brought up DeMar, and something I brought up too is like Pat, man, watching him in the summer league, there were a lot of opportunities. Like he took, you look at his shot attempts, you see he took a lot of shots and he didn't make as many as you would like to see. But like if you watch the games, there were plenty of opportunities for him on drives to draw contact and get to the free throw line, where he's actually a pretty good free throw from. And I thought that like adding a guy like DeMar, and that makes me very happy that he's already talked about that type of stuff about DeMar, but just learning some of the tricks that DeMar has up his sleeve, right? The pump fakes, the dipping the ball on the drive and ripping up when somebody reaches, just adding that to Pat's bag, where he can use those things when he gets those opportunities. I think that's going to help Pat get to another level, and just learning how to use his frame and how to draw that contact, and having a guy like DeMar is huge, man, because as good as Zach LaVine is as a scorer, he doesn't necessarily get to the free throw line as much as you would hope and want. So that is definitely something I'm happy to hear about that you just mentioned with Pat. I guess one question I had for you is with Kobe. I wanted to touch back on Kobe. What is his being there and seeing them and shoot around and things like that? Does he seem like a guy that's worried about his position, does he seem like he's just kind of around the guys and kicking it, or can just from afar can you tell if like he's worrying about things like that?
So we talked to Kobe once, and we've seen him, but we've only talked to him once. And the other times when we see Kobe, he is working his ass off. He's out there with like 6-7 different coaches, and he's doing full court drills, and obviously it's clearly to keep his conditioning up, and shooting crazy left-handed or right-handed overhead shots, and it's impressive to see his work ethic at the end of practice, and all that he's trying to do to keep up and catch up from the shoulder surgery. So I don't think he's worried. And even Pat said it, that Kobe's not the type to let you see it. So obviously I don't think any player is going to be too thrilled about a team bringing in so many guards, but there is still clearly a role for him as a off the bench shooter. So I think he's had enough conversations with Billy Donovan to know that he can be secure in that.
Actually, I have one more, Chris.
Sure.
We haven't touched on him at all, and I don't think I've heard much about him in the media day as well. But Tony Bradley, what do you think about his role on this team?
Yeah, I had someone who knew him from Philly tell me how valuable he was for that Sixers team, and that in some ways he was just as this is gonna sound crazy, but in some ways he was as important as Embiid to a degree because of how he was able to impact the game defensively, and how he was able to bring up the level of players around him with his impact. So that was high praise. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm saying that. I'm telling you what I was told. But that made me really curious to see Tony Bradley this year.
Yeah, we're going to see those MVP odds for Tony Bradley after that comment.
Right? Yeah.
No, but it's true. It's true. We talked about Vooch and how important he is, but Tony Bradley being that backup big, I mean, he's going to have a huge role, not only defensively as an anchor, but if Vooch goes down, he might have to step in that starting role, and he's gonna be really important. And with Vooch and how Billy Donovan says they want to play fast, and we saw how much they slowed down after Vooch came over last year. And every coach in the NBA says they want to play fast in preseason. Every single one says. I've never heard a single coach say, we really just want to slow it down.
Oh, that's not true.
Who said it?
Crawl, walk, run.
Oh my Lord! No, don't bring that up. Oh man,
I'm just telling you, I've heard it.
That's at Darnell Mayberry. Bringing up bad memories here, but it's interesting though, because Tony Bradley is going to have a very different role on offense, because obviously Vooch can be your trailer on a fast break. But Tony Bradley doesn't have that ability yet, but he's really nice around the basket. He's got some good touch around the basket, and his defense can be really important because we really lack rim protectors. The last thing I want to ask you, Darnell, before we let you go, and Laro, if you have any other questions, obviously feel free to ask. But one of my favorite things you did last year was you did a bunch of predictions for the year, right? And one of them was like Wendell Carter triple double, which you got close to a couple times. Thag almost got a triple double a couple times. But what's your? I don't know if you're doing it again this year, but if you are, or if you've got one, I want to hear your best prediction for this upcoming season.
Ooh, I haven't even thought about it yet. I think, and this is pessimistic a little bit. I think it's going to be hard for Zach to have the type of year that he did last year. I think everyone's expecting him to have, another jump, and I do think he's going to improve in smaller ways and sort of incrementally a little bit. But I don't see him having a better year than he had last year.
So you don't think, because he said he wants to be all defensive team. You don't think he's going to be a third? I think my prediction for. I know, but I think he's going to be at least average on defense. He was close. He was close to average. He was a little bit below average if you look at a bunch of different metrics last year defensively. And I know those aren't perfect, but if he can be average on defense or better this year, that's going to go a long way. As you mentioned, that's incremental kind of stuff, but that would really, really help him a lot.
You want a hot take, Chris? I'll give you a hot take. I was at practice.
There we go.
I was at practice the other day, and Zach was doing some just working on finishing at the rim with an assistant coach. And I'm just sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, why can't he be the MVP?
Thank you. There we go.
Woo. Hey, you bringing back memories, because you know what? Somebody said that.
We talked about
that's what I thought. And that's what I thought when that thought popped in my mind. I said, there was a Bulls guard who said that once upon a time, and it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, I like these hot takes. I love them. I need it. I need more of it.
It took over an hour to get this out of you, Darnell, but we finally got you.
I just contradicted myself. I just said he's not going to have a better season than he had last year. But I did think that at practice. No bull. I did think that at practice.
I'm just saying, what did Derek average that year? He wasn't averaging 28, 5, and 5, was he?
Different era. Different era.
I know. I'm just saying, Zach could get better as a player. I think he might average a little bit less points. But if the Bulls are good, like if the Bulls are top 4 seed, I can see him. He's going to get some votes.
Someone's going to have to be in the thick of that if the Bulls are a 4 seed.
I got one for you. So obviously you're someone that pays attention to the whole division. Who would you, if this team is a top 4, 5, anywhere from 4 to 6? Who do you think they'll be fighting with for? Like, I guess I want to ask, like, the Pacers. Like, are you worried about, like, with the addition of Rick Carlisle, them getting healthy? Is that a team you're worried about?
Not really. I think the Bulls at this point have more talent. Don't
they? Hey, yeah, that's all right. That's all I need to hear.
Valero, you said if they get healthy. But they're not healthy.
TJ Warren is not healthy, but I just think this dude is
but this is why I did want to ask you this, Darnell, actually, about how do you feel knowing that Lowry and Denzel aren't that far away here? They're going to see him a lot this year in the division. So what do you think the Denzel revenge game looks like?
Let's go, Darnell. Let's go.
They're gonna get the shots up. I know that. I mean, those guys are gonna come in here gunning. But they also got to compete with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland for the ball. So good luck to them.
Yeah, that should be a fun team to watch this year. Man.
Okay, I got an
off
the wall
on that Pacers team. Wait a minute.
Well, hold on.
So you said Domas?
Their starters are Brogdon,
Turner,
Turner,
Karras,
Sabonis, Karis LeVert, and TJ Warren. See, those are all very solid players, but I think if you
combine question marks.
Yeah, if you combine both of those teams, your top 5 picks, there might be one Pacer in that top 5.
Yeah,
maybe Sabonis would be my guy.
That's what Mark said as well. That's what he said. That's a good point. I guess.
Who's their coach now? Who did they just hire? Oh, Rick Carlisle. Oh, that's the game changer. That might be the momentum swinger right there.
That's what I'm saying. But again,
he's still one of the best coaches in basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. He's top 5 for sure.
No doubt.
That man is a wizard.
Yeah,
he does stuff. He made JJ Barea amazing for years.
No, JJ Barea was a tough little guy now.
Every
Yeah.
time he played the Bulls, he worked us. I mean, he was Bulls killer.
Barea did that to the Bulls.
Every time he played
Yeah,
us.
I remember
JJ
Barea
went
from
off.
OKC, and he used to do that. Maybe Barea did that to a lot of teams.
Maybe that's why Rick Carlisle played him so much.
He probably did. No, I think the Bulls are better, more talented than the Pacers.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think they're more talented. The coaching though, I mean, Rick Carlisle he's a fantastic coach. So
and those guys have kind of been together, so that also kind of gives them an advantage.
There'll be a good litmus test. I think them and Celtics, the Pacers, and the Knicks are the teams I kind of think of in that kind of similar tier that I want to see what we can do against those guys. So, oh man, I'm excited though. I
got an off the wall question for you, Darnell.
Laro's just getting started here.
If all three of us went out to karaoke, what's the song you picking to do?
Bruno Mars.
Which one?
Don't matter.
Ooh, okay.
He's all about locked out of heaven. He's going.
Hey,
24 karat.
Yeah.
Jill Scott, I know you say like too, but I always like asking that question.
I did say some Jill Scott the last time we were on. I said something about
Jill
Scott. Yeah, that's right.
I just had to ask. I love asking that question.
I've never done karaoke though.
For real?
No way. Come on now.
For real?
Laro's gonna hit you up.
I was just at a karaoke spot on Tuesday, but I wasn't getting up there. This dude did The Lion King, and I wanted to tip him.
Man, The Lion King.
The Lion King. I was not expecting The Lion King to come
like
out
Circle
there.
of Life.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That one. Yeah, he was going in. He was going in.
That's got some range. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta have some pipes for that.
Hey man,
that's what I like.
Yeah, give me some Bruno Mars, Jill Scott, whatever. Yeah,
I went and saw Bruno Mars in Vegas once.
He put on a show, didn't he?
No, that was the thing. He made us wait. It was at a club, right? So we were at the club, and he was supposed to come on at some point. But I've been to Vegas and seen those shows before, and they don't come until like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. So Bruno Mars finally comes out. It's like 2:30 a.m. He finally comes out and says, "What's up, guy?" And I'm like, he's like hyping us up. Does one song. He does "Locked Out of Heaven," and he says, "All right, see you guys later. I'm going to hang out with J-Lo." Never saw him again. That was the end of the night. I was like, I'm going to bed, man. I'm out of here. I'm telling you,
petty, man.
It wasn't like a a Bruno Mars concert. It was like he was coming, as like a special guest to the club. But I thought, because I've seen like LMFAO at in Vegas or like other people like that, and they like put on a show. But Bruno Mars is like, come on, man, J-Lo right now. I'm here to hear some music, dude. But
can you be mad at the man? He was going to
I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing.
I'm a married man, man. I don't know nothing about no J-Lo. But hey, before we let you go, man, I one more hot take, man. I need one more.
You need one more from me?
Yeah, yeah, just one more.
I don't have one Bulls related. I don't. I'm just curious to see what these guys look like. It's hard for me to be too optimistic, and it's hard for me to be pessimistic. I'm at this point I'm neutral. I want to see what they do. I don't think they're going to be, great, obviously, and I don't think they're going to be terrible. So we're going to see how it all comes together. But yeah, I don't have any more for this team.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, we got a couple out of you, so we appreciate your time, Darnell.
If Zach LaVine wins MVP, you heard it here first.
That's right.
There it is.
That's right. I'll give you credit, sir. I'll give you credit. If Zach LaVine wins MVP, this team.
Hey man, if Zach gets one vote for MVP, I should get credit for that. One vote.
Hey,
and it might be mine.
If and when Zach LaVine gets a single MVP vote, me, you, and Laro are going out to karaoke together. We'll dinner on us and karaoke.
What song would you do?
What was that? Sorry.
What song would you do?
What song would I do? Oh, we talked about we talked about this last. I'm up for anything, man. No, Mark K. Come on, Maroon 5. Come on, man. I'm not doing Maroon 5 at karaoke. Like Chubb says, "Boys to Men, End of the Road."
Oh, that's a classic.
There it is. There it is. Man.
Yeah, hey Darnell. Actually, this is a good point by Vincent. Are you one of the media voters for MVP? Because you might be able to play your card here.
I haven't done it. since.
Okay.
I haven't done it since
count.
I've done the Bulls, and I don't want to do it anymore. I've actually said no thanks. I'm not doing it anymore.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying if you get to do it,
I'll tell you what.
you can't. You're going to be disqualified.
I couldn't do. They would drag me nationally if the one Zach LaVine vote came from the athletic Chicago. Come on, man. I couldn't do that to myself.
I'll tell you what. Right now, if Zach won MVP, the Donovan Mitchell fans, the Devin Booker fans, they wouldn't want to see me on Twitter. They wouldn't want to see us on Twitter because it's too much of this Zach LaVine being dragged talk.
Oh my gosh!
So
you can throw Bradley Beal in that category too.
Yes,
right.
yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
right. I'm already out here telling people I'm not going to hear anything about Bradley Beal being 11th in the league and Zach being 33rd. No way.
Right.
No way. No. If Zach wins MVP, I'm going to be very toxic on Twitter. I'll tell you right now. I'm not a toxic person.
It's going to be a good season, guys.
Yes, it will.
It's going to be a good season. It's going to be more fun than what we've been seeing. So
absolutely, Darnell, I think that's the thing to look forward to here is we got a season we can actually be excited about. We don't know the outcome.
Every game matters. Feels like every game matters.
Every game matters. Oh man, I
can't. Nick Friedel too. I'm adding you as well. That brother is just I don't know, man. I don't know, but that brother's something else. He always got something bad to say about the Bulls, man. So we'll see. We'll see.
Hey, Zach proved him wrong once already. We'll see if he can do it again. So, well, Darnell, we won't keep you any longer. Appreciate you having you on as our third co-host of Bulls 101 once again. You're welcome. We'll have you on again during the season. Around that MVP voting time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys do not follow Darnell, do so at Darnell Mayberry on Twitter. Follow The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic. They got deals all the time.
Yeah.
It's super cheap. It is hands down the best sports coverage you will ever get in your life. I've never regretted it once. And Darnell's worth the price of admission by himself. So thank you so much, Darnell, for hanging with us, doing a little hoops after dark. Loved it, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me, man. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for the comments. Oh man, we're gonna leave you guys to the comments. We're getting hate now. We're getting hate. I'm being slandered online right now. Nickelback. All right. I'm out of here. We are out of here. See you guys later.
See you.
Peace.